So I'm redesigning a log splitter that I have one, but it doesn't tilt up, which I run into some big logs, so I figured I'm going to make one that tilts up. Plus, the I-beams I used on the other one that I made, they're starting to twist. I reinforced them, putting some, if you reinforce an I-beam, you can put brackets or fillers, like right in here, and fill this part of it every so often. The more you put, the stronger it is, and it keeps it from twisting. Now this I-beam's a really strong one. I don't think you twist that one, but the other I-beam I have is like this small one here, which two of them on top of each other. And what I ended up doing was tying them together on the outside, which worked, but one of the welds broke and it's still trying to start to twist. I mean, it still works, but eventually I know it would break. So anyhow, I ran into some big logs. I figured I'd just go ahead and redo another one. So what I'm going to do is make this pivot. This is going to be the base here. It's a piece of steel that I cleaned up that I had left over. All this is used stuff, and that's a railroad track. I'm going to double that railroad track up, and I'm also going to make it pivot so that I can stand it up so I can roll logs in under it instead of having to pick the log up to split it. And what I'm going to use for a hinge is this bolt with this pipe, and I'm just going to cut this pipe into pieces, and when I'm all done I'll show you here. And then after it's cut into pieces, I'm going to line it up and weld it on there, and that'll give you my pivot. At least that's the plans. You may change along the way, but we'll see how that works. Maybe you can make more sense out of that from a distance, what I was planning on doing. But as I go along, you'll see. And I don't know that I may put wheels on it. I'm not sure. I left that as an option. I can always weld a set of wheels on there and put a hitch to it, but I don't normally move it around. Someone commented about the last one I did, but it's not meant to drive. It's not meant to drive around. It's meant to sit in one spot. So we'll see what happens, but I have no need for wheels on it. So that's the hinge. I didn't try it yet. Almost positive it'll work. It's tacked on there pretty good. I'm going to try to flip it up around, see if I can get some better welds on it. But I think some of them do need, it's hard to weld that, especially to that piece of railroad tie, or railroad track. I have a hard time welding to that. I know I had problems with that once before, using railroad track, but it was an older type. I'm hoping this is a little better still, but time will tell. So that's what it looks like, because you can still take it apart. You want to make sure that bolt's in there, even when you tack it on the bottom. When you tack all them together, you want to make sure that bolt's in there. If not, it won't line up. And I just stuck it back in there and then welded the top part of that and grinded it off some. You have to be careful where you put the welds, because it might interfere with it opening up. But one good thing about it is you can always grind it off if you have to. It's better to have a little bit extra weld on it than... There's no real pressure on it. It's just going to be a matter of swinging it up. I mean, there's not going to be nothing on it from splitting the log or anything. So I don't see a real problem with it at all. I was going to split it halfway so that it would be balanced when lifting it up. But if I would do that, it would be, when I set it back down, it would be up too high in the air, because I want it about, well, actually about the level of my knees is nice. You don't have to lift the log too high, and it's not too bad to work with at that height. So, which is about what it's at now. A little bit lower. I'm going to add about 6 inches to it. But anyhow, so I'm thinking, I have some garage door springs, some new ones left over from a job. I actually have probably about 4 of them. I'm thinking one probably would do it, because you just got to balance it. But I might put 2, one on each side. And those will just have enough tension on it that when I pick it up, it'll take some of the weight off of it. It'll just balance it out. Which that should work. I mean, it works on a garage door. And a garage door is over 100 pounds. So I would imagine it will work pretty good. The only thing I am worried about is that steel that the I-beam, or that the track is made out of. I'm afraid the welds won't hold. It's not a cast, but it reminds you of a cast. After you weld it, the welds hold, it's just the metal breaks away. So I'm not sure what kind of, I don't know if it has a lot of carbon in it, or what the story is behind this track. What it's made out of. But I figure worst comes to worst. All the thing that needs is really welded is the blunt end, which I'll bolt it on if I have to. Bolts will hold. I'll blow some holes in with the torch and bolt it on. Put some number 8 grade bolts in it or something. If the weld keeps giving me a problem, but I'm worrying about something that's probably not even going to happen. Well, seems to work pretty good. I mean, even without the springs on it. Of course, so this I'm almost positive I'm going to double this up. Get some height out of it, plus some strength. There's another railroad tie, or a railroad track. But, I mean, it's liftable. And probably 2 of them I could probably lift without a problem. I need to put a lock on it so it can't come back down unless I hit it to unlock it. The hinge part works really good. It's real smooth. Of course, everything's so heavy. I'm happy with it. Man, plenty tight. Once the hydraulic cylinder nat's on it, though, it will be a lot heavier. But I know them springs should take care of it without a problem. After putting a new pump, instead of running the log splitter off my tractor, the tractor, the pump on them are a whole different style than the actual log splitter pump, because of that 2-stage feature on them. and so you get a lot more pressure, which I didn't really know until I bought a actual pump for a log splitter. And then I only have it on a 6.5 horsepower motor, and it actually took this on a tough log. Was all knots, piece of maple, all knots, and it's, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but there's a twist in it, and it's what it did was twist the I-beams. It started doing it, and I figured I could get it to stop by putting these braces in it, and also these I forget what they call these. I guess it's just a flange. You weld them inside the I-beams, and that just keeps it from the I-beam from twisting. This also would keep it from twisting, but it actually broke a couple of these and had to re-weld them off. And it's just getting to the point where it just keeps twisting and twisting more and more, and it's not coming back. So I'm not going to be able to get it back to where it needs to be. I mean, it still works, but as you can see, I don't know if you can see that. This obviously has a twist to it, but that's sort of basically because of the I-beam's twisted. The actual I-beam is twisted. So as you're putting pressure on it, it wants to twist it. It's not bending it. It's not bending it, well, I want to say horizontal, but it's just twisting, which you don't think of things like that unless you're actually an engineer or someone who worked with a lot of steel at one time would know that stuff. But anyhow, hopefully the steel railroad tracks won't twist like that. Hopefully that's enough. I could put some bracing in it, but I really don't. I'm going to see how much time I got, and maybe I should brace it. Some bracing in to keep it from twisting. Fasten this part to here somehow. A couple, maybe. I'm sure there must be a formula for it, but I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, it would take a lot, I would think, to twist one of them railroad tracks, and there's two of them welded on top of each other. But we'll see. But anyhow, I'm going to move all the mechanical, the cylinder, the mechanical stuff, and also I'm switching it so that instead of the splitter being on this end, this will have the stop, and the splitter will be on the actual movement of the pump. That way I can set that up. I have that up to be hinged. Right there's a hinge on it. So I can lift that up if I have any log, which I run into, which I didn't think I would, but I run into some logs I couldn't pick up. So if I be able to flip that up, I can just roll them on there. That's the plan anyway. I pulled the hydraulics off, and this is actually, yeah, I'm going to reuse that part. Even though that was the stop, I'm going to maybe cut that off, which wasn't really a wide enough wedge to split it quick enough. Which you don't need really that much, but that new hydraulic with the actual log splitter pump, it moves fast. Once it starts splitting, it starts moving really quick. But I figure I'm just gonna these welds on here was to grab the log, so I might do that on this end now. Just put some welds on it so it helps grab the log. But here I think I'm just gonna weld that wedge on here and hook the cylinder up the similar way, because this didn't, as far as I can tell, did not twist. It looks pretty straight. So, and plus it's pretty beefy. The handle, I mean, I reinforced it a couple times. First off, I had this plate on it, and it bent this plate back, and that's why I got this put on it. And you can see that's part of a railroad track on the bottom. This is something I thought would be weak, but evidently it doesn't press too much. I did have to, I think I put this in before, so I never really had a problem with this. Which this is just a couple washers, I believe. Yeah, I think it was just a couple yeah, that's what it was. Just a couple washers. This was two washers with a big nut in there in between. And then I just had to polish out the hole a little bit in order to get the pin in it. So I think the washers were the exact size. You can see there's no play in that. And the opposite end, is this end here, which I think I'm going to cut off. That mounts the other end, which was plenty strong too. It didn't do, I was worried about that being weak, that end. But that was plenty strong. And evidently I must have drilled them holes. But all that slides in, which is something else. These angles, there's no real pressure on these. I mean, if there's pressure on it, but nothing like there is on this part, this actual part here. And then these angles were put on just to help steady the log in place once you've set it up on there, which I'll do the same thing with, because this is pretty much the same width as that track up there. So shouldn't have too much problem, I don't think. Well, I salvaged the parts I needed off the old log splitter. Looks like it should work pretty good. I don't see a problem so far. I don't see nothing that shouldn't work. And nothing's welded up. I'm just getting some temporary to know where to weld everything in. But the next shot of it will probably be when it's all said and done.